watched, actually, incidentally, and he listened to my Andy Curran podcast, No Sleep Till Sudbury, and said, I noticed that Andy talked about an old Aerosmith song that I'd never heard of called Round and Round. And I said, what do you know about Aerosmith? He said, oh, like Ragdoll. And I said, dude, they had like a whole career before that.
Jeez.
And he goes, really? And I said, really? So anyway, I said, so that's a show. I mean, because we've been talking about collaborating on something. And so I said, I'm going to take you through all these old records. And he said, I would love that, because I don't, after kind of, I don't know, mid 80s, I don't really know what happened in the 70s and so forth. And so we went through Black Sabbath and Aerosmith and Van Halen and, all that stuff. And it's kind of cool because, I'm introducing them to new stuff, and it's kind of fascinating in that way. So.
It is a good show. I've watched
it. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's frustrating because albums that we think are unbelievable, he hasn't heard them. It's like, how could you not heard that record? Are you kidding me? You know what I mean? But that's just the way it is, It shows how old we're getting.
I know, and that's kind of scary, isn't it? Like,
man.
It fascinates me a little bit because these things are they're a part of you. These records that we grew up with, right?
Yeah.
And for him, he kind of, it's funny it's almost like talking to one of your kids and saying, "Well, son, this is," and he's like, "Wow," It's interesting.
Yeah. But at the same time, opening their eyes to it is amazing, because it's like Cheap Trick, somebody saying, oh yeah, I love The Flame. And you're like, dude, there's like 20 albums before The Flame. And you're like, go back. And so I personally, it's a badge of honor. Like, I'm happy that younger guy was like, hey, I'm going to go check this out. Why you like this band, and where Aerosmith and Cheap Trick and all the bands that we grew up with, so let's bring on that next generation, Brent.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We're at episode 58, I believe, with that show now.
Wow.
We got a lot of it. We still got a lot of rock to talk about. So yeah, we're going strong. I'm happy with it.
Fraser, what are you currently up to?
I'm working on the new Stormforce record. It's our second, and that's pretty much occupying all my time. Every time I do get any free time, I just kind of get back in it, and always constantly writing and stuff like that. And we just did a show almost 2 weeks ago in Hamilton, so that was fun. And that's about it, man. I just continue to write like I always do, and just keep going.
That's awesome. Now we get into some crazy things that are going on in Sean's world. Sean?
Yeah, well, lots going on. I'm proud to be rocking.
That's an understatement.
My rock and roll big brother Andy here, and the mighty Coney Hatch. I'm pinching myself every time I'm on stage. Little teenage dream come true there. And we got some exciting things I'll let Andy talk about. But I have tomorrow the new Lee Aaron record comes out.
Yeah,
nice.
With Mike Fraser in Vancouver, and I'm very excited about that. I recently got to sub in with Harlequin at Casino Rama a couple of weeks ago. That was kind of fun.
Oh wow!
And playing with my friend Alan Frew on New Year's. So a few music things going on, and my new book, Don't Call It Hair Metal: Art in the Excess of 80s Rock, is coming out on ECW Press in May. So
I'll be getting that one.
Yeah.
Cheers, man.
I love your last one. Metal Nice was fantastic.
Thank
you. Yeah, and I have to add that you can go on Amazon and pre-order Sean's book. I think I pre-ordered it about a month ago for $26.
Oh,
Canadian.
Nice.
I mean, come on, folks. If you're out there watching, support local, support great book authors like Sean, and just push that pre-order button. Easy peasy.
Congratulations on the new record, Sean. I've heard a couple of songs in advance, like the videos, and they sound fantastic, man. Your playing's up. It's unbelievable as always. Sounds great. It must have been a dream working with Mike Fraser. Like he did the whole record, right?
Yeah, wow. I learned a lot about guitar tone from guys named Fraser. It turns out, that company and Mike too. Yeah, man. It was like a kid in a candy store. Oh, here we'll wheel out the amp that Joe Perry used, and here's the one Angus was using.
Oh my God! Really?
I'll plug into that.
Wow. Amazing. I would love to pick your brain on another day. Just all the little things, what kind of mics we're using and cabinets and all that stuff, man.
You know what's funny? I'm co-opting time here, Deke, but
no worries.
The coolest thing was, as much as it was great to have that gear, it's the ears behind the guy who's
Absolutely.
And just things like, I'm playing a power chord, all of a sudden I feel two hands behind me and Frey's like bending the guitar neck into tune and stuff. I'm like, you could do that? Just amazing things. So it was cool, but we'll definitely chat about it. It was fun.
Absolutely. That'd be fantastic. Right on.
And one other thing, Sean, we got to congratulate you because this past summer you were inducted into the North Bay
Yeah.
and Entertainers Hall of Recognition.
Right on.
Oh,
well deserved.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that was an honor. That was a thrill. That's my date, my mom. It was very cool.
Love that.
Cool.
Hey,
Love
that's
that.
awesome. That's
That's
awesome.
great.
That's awesome. And I can already tell everybody out there. I already reached out to Sean when he released or put the book out on Amazon for pre-order that when I get the book next year, I'll probably devour it in 2 days, and I will have him on Scotch the Rocks where we'll get right into it. So be on the lookout for that.
I'd be honored. Thank you.
Thanks, man. And Mr. Curran, tell us what's going on, buddy.
Yeah, well, in the spirit of getting to Michael Schenker and UFO quickly, I will just give you the Coles notes. As Sean said, well, actually, the fact that Sean's playing with Coney now, we really feel lucky to have him. He's a super busy guy and very sought after and so talented. So we've got we recorded a show in Germany when Sean joined the lineup, and we didn't know what we were going to do with it. And subsequently, through Mr. Steve Harris from Iron Maiden, we were introduced to the guys at Explorer One, the label that released Wolfgang Van Halen's Mammoth and KK Downing's record and the British Lion record. So we just quietly signed a deal with Explorer One for the live in Germany. But over COVID, and Sean was the catalyst for this, he called me up and he was like, dude, we're locked down. Let's finish these 2 tracks that you started. We had done a couple bed tracks when we were recording the Coney Hatch 4 record, and I had told Sean about it, and we never finished them. So I'm quite excited that we finished 2 new studio tracks. First time ever with the lineup with Sean Kelly playing guitar, with Dave Ketchum and Carl Dixon and myself. So those will be part of the record, live in Germany with 2 new studio tracks, and awesome to have Sean aboard on that one. He played like a madman. We've also got a date at the El Macombo coming up. It's the 40th anniversary of the Coney Hatch debut record, and we were talking all year about we should go out and play some shows, and we never did for a variety of reasons, and mostly because everybody's really busy, but we just never really put it together. And our old pal Michael Weckerly down at the El Macombo said, why don't you guys bring the show in? So December 29th, we're going to play the first debut album in its entirety from top to bottom, which we've never done as a band, in sequence. And that'll be cool to do that. It's the 40th anniversary of the record. It makes me feel kind of old, but we're going to do that, and then we'll probably take a quick intermission, and Sean will change into some more leather jackets, and we'll fix our hair, and I'll mop up with the little hair I got left yet, and we'll come on and play it, an encore with a bunch of other tunes. And so that's going to keep us busy through December. In January, when we go out on the road with British Lion.
How cool is that, man?
We're going to do 11 shows in 14 days, which I haven't done since that phrase. I haven't done that since probably when Brighton and Coney started. So I'm actually like, what did we agree to here? And
let alone the time change and all that kind of stuff too, eh?
Right. I mean, it's a 45-minute set, so I'm, if I was just playing bass, I wouldn't worry about it. But I'm going to have to definitely beat the crap out of my voice. And between Carl and I, that's good. We got a 45-minute opening set. A bunch of the dates are already sold out. Harris and Steve is very happy that we're doing these shows with them. We haven't played in Europe extensively, so this will be the longest tour that Coney has done, which is quite ironic after 40 years, right?
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so that's cool. And then already started working on a new Envy of None record with our pal Mr. Alex Lifeson. We're about 3 or 4 songs deep into writing some new material, and Alfio and I will probably try to head out to Portland to work with Maya Wynn, the vocalist, and get things up. We've got an EP coming out at the top of the year of next year with Envy of None, with some remixes and a brand new song. So, you know, between that and ice hockey and drinking bourbon and hanging out with Sean Kelly, that's filling up the schedule.
Just owning Curran every day, it takes up his schedule.
Hey Andy,
Right.
you gotta get some kind of videographer or something to follow you around, make a documentary of that tour, because everybody would love to see that, you know.
Yeah.
Even just, 10 minutes a day, just 10 minutes a day of just where you are and talking to the guys. And next thing you know, you got an hour, 90 minutes.
Yeah, I know, Phrase. That's a great idea, Phrase. And my, at the top of my list, and I haven't even told this to Sean Kelly yet, when I found out where we were playing in London, England, I Googled how far Coney Hatch is away from there. That Coney Hatch, for people that don't know, is a psychiatric hospital dating back to the late 1800s, early 1900s. And my goal is to get a photo op with all 4 members of Coney Hatch outside the gates of the original Coney Hatch. That's what I want to do, Phrase. Yeah,
that's an album cover
cool.
right there. Right?
Yeah,
There you go.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
So,
guys, sorry, Andy, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
That was it. That was it, buddy. I'm ready to rock into. Can we start there?
Oh,
You know what?
no.
Before
Old school.
we start there, I got a surprise for you guys.
Oh no,
You
Michael
guys ready
Schenker.
for this?
Michael Schenker's here.
No, not Michael Schenker, but you guys know this guy, and Sean just did some work with him. Let's bring to the show Mr. Mike Fraser.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
God.
That's hilarious.
Are you kidding me?
I had to change the name slightly there. Put the phrase.
Well, you're the original Phrase. I'm an imposter.
I was just gonna compliment Sean Kelly, saying any guy that works with a guy that wears a kilt in the studio is good by me.
Wow.
Air conditioning. Know what I'm saying? Just air conditioning.
Jeez.
Oh my God, so good to see you, Phrase.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
Man, now you are a guy whose brain I would love to pick. I would like to spend 2 hours just talking about Jimmy Page alone, just that alone.
Yeah.
My God, I can't believe you worked with Page, man. Like, oh, jeez.
I know. I've been freaking lucky, man. This whole career, like all the Canadian icons, the Rush guys, Andy. Thank you so much for putting that one together, because. Man,
They love you, Mike. They love you. You knocked it out of the park with the Rush recordings, man. You knocked it out of the park.
Jeez, amazing.
Yeah,
Man. It's an honor.
Now I
Mike.
got to check off Coney Hatch on my list, and
Let's make it happen. Let's go. We're coming out to Vancouver.
Jeez, this is amazing. Wow.
so you're all looking great and healthy, and we're through this COVID thing, kind of. I hear, numbers are going up, but everybody's still doing good. I guess it's not killing as many people anymore. So hopefully the live things can still happen, and our lives just carry on. Some more.
Yeah,
let's hope.
Well, Fraser, Mike Fraser, you just finished the Lee Aaron record. What else you been working on?
It sounds fantastic, by the way. What I've heard is
Thank you. Yeah.
Amazing.
No, we had a lot of fun doing that. Just packed everybody in, and like everybody was trying to do, let's just get it all live in the studio, which we pretty much did. I guess vocals and stuff was done after the fact, but you just can't beat that energy, and to me, that's what rock music's about. So some of the more modern stuff where it all gets pieced together and quantized and auto-tuned, you kind of lose the party. Like, there's still some good music, but you kind of lose the party of it,
Couldn't agree more.
All feel it, when it's done with great musicians and live, it's just the vibrancy of it, So, yeah.
Wow.
It's been, to answer your question, Andy, it's been, still pretty slow. It's just been bits and pieces. I had a whole bunch of stuff. Actually, I came home early from my cabin because I had all of August, September, October booked solid. shut the cabin down, winterized it, came home, and then it's all moved. This tour was canceled, so we don't have the money for that. And then so right now, January, February, March is piled up like crazy, but nothing's confirmed until people have the money. Everybody gets a lot more careful with their money. I think if I mixed in the box, I think I'd probably be a lot busier. But just paying me in the studio and that, like, the budgets just aren't there right now.
Yeah.
It's tough. So I've sort of been retired, but it pissed me off because then I thought, well, maybe I should go back up to the cabin, because out here in the West Coast, it was like just an awesome, long stretched Indian summer. Like, it was great right till almost now. And I could have spent it at the cabin, but then I thought, well, I've got to go back there, turn the water back on, do this. I got no groceries. I got to haul groceries up there. And then, I might have to shut it down again. So I just sort of sweltered here in the coast and thought, damn it. Shut it up.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. You know what? Phrase 2. Thanks so much for coming on. This is totally awesome.
Yeah.
I love sitting here in the background listening to all the stories. So, you guys carry on. I'll just be a little quiet little mouse in the back corner.
Well, no, by all means.
You never know what's going to happen on this show, right?
I'm just glad I said nice things about your Phrase.
I'm actually thrown off guard here a little bit, because like I'm such a fan of your work, Mike.
Thanks, man.
It's like, wow. I'm telling Sean, I go, man, how lucky you are to work with that guy. Like, and then here you are in front of me here. It's like, holy shit. It's amazing, man. I love to pick your brain, but you have no idea, man. Like, I love
at any time, I'm sitting around, or it'd be great to be able to put a trip together and come out and see you guys. I haven't been back east in, I want to say 5 years, but it's probably more like 10. It's almost, I think it's over 4 years or 5 years. We did that last AC/DC records. That just feels like it was 2 years ago. Like, it's
wow.
I don't know where time goes anymore. It's just like, bam.
Well, I have to echo what Greg said, because I was such a fan of so many records that Mike Fraser has mixed and been involved with, and the Dan Reed Network was the first record that kind of I went, oh my God, this record sounds unbelievable, and then saw Mike Fraser's name on it and thought, how am I going to ever get to work with Mike? And so I lived vicariously through introducing the Rush Boys to Mike when they said, well, we want somebody to remix our live stuff. And I had just got the DVD that Mike had mixed, Castle Donington, I believe it was. It might have been the Castle Donington one. And I just told the boys, like, this when I put this on, it exploded through my PA system. This is one of the best, my stereo at home. It's one of the best sounding live records I've ever heard in my life. And I played it for them. And next thing you know, Alex Lifeson and I are on a plane heading out to work with Mike. And so, I found a way to work with Mike Fraser, just not on my stuff. So we will have to tick off a Coney Hatch one.
We'll do that one day. And, the highlight, many highlights, but, actually meeting and hanging out with Alex, one of my all-time freaking
absolutely.
But then shortly after that, when I got sick and in the hospital, and then was it you guys did a show out here? Anyways, I got to meet Getty and everybody else. So that was really thrilling. We didn't get a chance to work together, one-on-one like we did with Alex, but, just meeting the whole band, to me, just checked off a big thing. Like,
wow.
I remember back in the end of high school, late 70s or whatever, just cranking the Rush stuff. And they were like one of my heroes. So to get your heroes, getting back to the Jimmy Page and all that, is just like, it's mind blowing to me to think, this little boy grew up in a farm out here in West Canada, and then all of a sudden you work with all these great musicians. Like, how the fuck did that happen?
Hey, Mike, do you have any relatives in Port Alberni on that area?
I don't. No.
Okay, because I've got relatives out there. I just wonder if somehow we're like distant relatives, like related somehow. You never know. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I tried to find out, if I'm a distant relative of Simon Fraser, because there's so many, the Fraser Canyon, the Fraser Valley. I thought, well, there's got to be royalties here somewhere, but nope.
That's awesome.
I wasn't joking about the kilt because I met Mike Fraser at the Junos one year, and he was wearing a kilt, and I was very proud of him.
Yeah,
Right on, brother.
I still rock it occasionally, but once you get into your 60s, it's like you got to be careful what you do.
He wants stuff falling out and everything.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, are you boys ready to chat some UFO now?
Well, yes, absolutely. But I have one small favor to ask you, Deke. Is there any way I can share my screen? Because I have to show you guys a photo. That's one of my favorite photos that I have. Do I just do I go on present?
Yeah, you can try
If
it.
I want to, okay, 1 second.
See what happens.
Share screen. Okay, share screen. Okay, check this out. Okay, that is Steve Harris and Pete Way on stage at Rock and Roll Heaven, and both of them are playing my basses. That's my Lato bass. So I think I'm trying to remember who we were opening for, but Steve Harris showed up and Pete Way showed up, and I was like, what is going on here, man? I left the stage, and two of my favorite bass players in the world were playing my bass guitars. So I had to show that to you guys. I love Pete Way.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, one of my favorite bass players, and found out later that UFO was one of Steve Harris's favorite bands. So I just wanted to show you guys that photo. All right. Okay,
That's fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah, there we
That
go.
is awesome.
Wow.
So, I was thinking to start off, what was your guys' entry point into UFO?
You might as well go ahead, Randy.
Okay, well, I'll go first, guys, because I remember it vividly. Don Kirshner's rock concert. I loved watching it. I mean, I'm really aging myself, but my God, you can go online. You can go online and you can see UFO on YouTube playing at Don Kirshner's rock concert, and there is a version of Rock Bottom that they play where Schenker it just took off, and he was playing this flying V. If I recall, he might have even thrown his shirt off, and he's just went for it. And that was it, hook, line, and sinker for me. They played Dr. Doctor, Rock Bottom. I was just like instantly a fan. Went out and bought pretty much all of their records, but it was for me, it was Michael Schenker that really hooked me in. I know I'm a bassist, but I loved everything about it. So Don Kirshner's rock concert, UFO, go onto YouTube and watch the show.
Yeah.
Brent?
Yeah, I've watched it. No, go ahead.
I had a friend who's a big UFO fan, and this is, I want to say, like 83, so it was kind of after UFO's prime time, but I heard Lights Out for the first time, and I thought, ooh, like who is this band? And Phil Moken reminded me a little bit of Bon Scott. Schenker's guitar was tremendous to me, because I remember thinking, and that was a time when there's a lot of flash players out there, right? A lot of tapping, a lot of whammy diving, a lot of pinch harmonics and stuff like that. But Schenker didn't lean on any of that stuff. He just played these really nice, inventive kind of guitar lines, and I was fascinated with that because he clearly was this amazing player. And that was, I want to say that was 83 that I heard Lights Out, and then I jumped in after that.
Nice. Either of the Frasers?
Go ahead, Mike. You a big UFO fan?
I know of them, but I was more into, I don't know, Sabbath and Zeppelin and all that stuff back in the day. So, they definitely crossed my plate. I know Michael Schenker was in the band, but I couldn't name a song right now.
Oh.
But, yeah.
Yeah. When I was around 16, that would be about, let me see, 16, I think it was about 1979. I was in a band, and the bass player, the other guitar player, and the drummer, they're already in their 20s. And this is when I first went on the road, and they wanted me to learn all these new songs I'd never heard before, like from UFO, early Scorpions, early Judas Priest. I'm hearing some background voices.
Yeah.
You guys hearing that?
I don't know what that is.
Yeah,
Sounds
I'm
like
hearing
a-
it too. I just muted my mic. I don't know if it's me, but
Is it me? Let me see.
I know phrase mic is coming in clear. Am I coming in clear or am
I can hear all of you, but it sounds like there's like a CB, like a taxi cab or something like interfering in there somewhere.
There is.
Okay, I'm not hearing that. But let me mute my mic and see if it's just me.
Oh,
I don't think
now
so.
it's gone.
You guys okay? You guys can hear okay now?
That's it.
I
I
don't-
can't hear
I
it
don't-
now.
I don't hear the
that's much
interference
better
now.
now.
Yeah.
Way to
Uh-oh.
go, Mike Fraser.
No, let's go like that. Then I'll go like this.
We'll mute our mics out of respect if we're not talking, and I'm sure that'll get rid of the taxi cab phrase.
Yeah, so like I was saying, like about 1979, they wanted me to learn all these new songs I never heard before. UFO, Early Scorpions, and Priest, and Lights Out was, I think that came out in '77, but I wasn't aware of it yet. So so when we had to learn Lights Out and Too Hot to Handle, and I thought, wow, who's this guitar player? Like the tone, I couldn't believe it. His vibrato was amazing. Then I heard the whole record, and I was like, whoa, this is changes everything. I love Phil Moggs' Right On. Look at that. That's a masterpiece, that record. I mean, and the production on it too. Ron Nevison. Are you a fan of Ron Nevison, Mike, at all?
Oh yeah, for sure. Ron's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So when he took over, it really changed the game. Like, if looking back, because once I started getting into him, then I started buying the earlier records. But Ron really changed the game for them and made him a lot more polished and almost classier sounding. Like there's a song on Lights Out called "Try Me." It's got a full orchestra and stuff like that. They never really did that kind of stuff in the past. And then the next record, Obsession, unbelievable. And then of course he produced Strangers in the Night. And yeah, look at, there you go. I love it. Look at that. Right on, man. Yeah. So, I mean, to this day, those records are right on. Well, I got the box set. You got the box set? Come on, let's go.
Where's Fawcett? Look at you guys. Holy crap. Who's got Fawcett? I haven't seen that one yet. There we go.
Oh,
I'm with Phrase. I can show this. There it is.
I've got all
Andy.
the records. I got every one of them.
Yeah, man.
This is the import. Because some of the covers they changed around.
That's right. They're a little
little
raunchy back then, huh?
Yeah, and I was like, "Who is that? Is that Pete Way necking with some guy in the shower? Like, what is that?"
You never know. It's probably Ozzy.
It took me a long time to figure out that the title is actually Fawcett, right?
Fawcett.
Like a play on faucet, right? A play on
So
faucet.
if you look at there's faucets everywhere.
Yeah.
But it's an English pronunciation of Fawcett.
Yeah.
Fawcett.
I never knew that. Look at that.
Yeah, Hypnosis did all their covers, and that was like Storm Thorgerson that did Pink Floyd and a lot of their covers. So I always loved their artwork. They had great covers. Who puts freaking ball bearings in your eyes? And why didn't and who voted Schenker didn't get any ball bearings in his eyes? What's up
I always
with that,
wondered
right?
about that too. Why is he there?
Because he's the German guy. Apparently, they picked on him. And that's what Getty and Alex told me, that they used to tease him quite a lot. I got a few UFO stories that they told me.
Oh, I'd love to hear those.
Yeah. I would love to hear those.
I remember hearing. I think it was an interview with Neil and Getty with George Strombolop. I forget how you say his last name.
Strombo.
Yeah.
Strombopoulos, yep.
And they were talking about when they were touring with UFO that remember they were Rush was wearing those kimonos and stuff like that, which I thought were awesome back then. I had to go get one back then too. But the UFO guys used to tease the hell out of them because they're like, what are you guys wearing those things for? So I guess they used to have some good times back in the day. So I'd love to hear some of those UFOs. Did Alex ever comment on Schenker at all, or?
Oh, loved him. Loved his tone. The boy, they called him Shanky. That was his nickname, and they basically told me that both Pete Way and Michael Schenker used to hide in their dressing rooms from their wives and girlfriends when they would come. They would go, "Our wives are here. We need to hide," and they'd hide in the Rush dressing room. But he told me they were furious partiers. Like, they would arrive, as we all know, when musicians arrive at a sound check. You pull up in the afternoon, and the boys in UFO were already pounding alcohol at like 2-3 in the afternoon, and they just kept going, and there was no off switch. but he said they were a
Wow.
great band. They had so much fun with those guys, but Pete Way was a one-man party, and I was lucky enough to hang with Pete in England one day with Ross Halpin, the photographer. But
Wow.
those guys could definitely put away the alcohol, but they said that they were very sweet. They loved playing with UFO.
I heard that when they were on tour, they started progressively. So through the day, sound check was white wine, and then they moved up into spirits. I think beer was in the middle, spirits at the end, and then it was just like this. And then they fall off the cliff, and then do it over again the next day.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So, Sean, your entry point into the world of Michael Schenker and UFO.
What's funny, the first UFO guitar player I fell in love with was actually Atomic Tommy McClendon, because was more the era. That was when I was getting into music, right around 85, Misdemeanor record. I'm reading Hit Parader, and I see this cool looking guitar player. He's got a Kaler whammy bar. I was all about that. And, to be honest with you, it was hard to get records sometimes in North Bay. I would often read about bands and know more about them from reading about them. So I already had a preconceived notion of what they sounded like just from the words of the writers I was reading. Yeah. So, I was reading about these guys. Eventually an album would come in on import or something, or someone would have a copy and you'd listen. But I came in through Atomic Tommy, but reading about, obviously Michael Schenker and the great, Strangers in the Night live album, reading about these things. I remember reading about Guns N' Roses singing the praise of that. They worked with Mike Klink, who was the engineer on who recorded the live stuff. I got into Wasted before I had a UFO record. Before I had a UFO record. I had Macaulay Schenker Group before I had a UFO record.
Wow.
And I remember, it's so funny. I remember at the time Mitch Perry was playing guitar in Macaulay Schenker Group, and reading that, Michael Schenker wanted to get somebody who played like the two-handed tapping style, more our stuff. And I remember thinking, oh, that's cool. That guy's not afraid of someone else doing something different. I remember that made an impression. And at some point I went back, and then I heard the Schenker UFO, and I went, okay, this is the stuff. And when I heard Michael Schenker's guitar tone, that half-cocked wah-wah pedal and that singing, but still clear as a bell tone, that hooked me, and I dove deep in. And listening to guys like Steve Harris and Joe Elliott talk about the influence of UFO, and thinking that's pretty cool that you can have UFO influencing Iron Maiden and Def Leppard. And it makes a lot of sense. I write about that in my book, that live record. You can hear how this album could have gone off into two strands, right? This kind of very aggressive, heavy galloping thing, or this very commercial and truncated and concise songwriting thing. So that was my trajectory into UFO.
And so basically we all circle back to the great Strangers in the Night record. Now, when we think of live albums from the 70s, there were a ton. There was Kiss Alive 2, Frampton Comes Alive, Judas Priest, Unleashed in the East, Thin Lizzy, Live and Dangerous, Rush, All the World's a Stage, Queen, Live Killers. I mean, Double Live Gonzo, the list goes on and on and on.
Even Foghat. Remember that live album? They used to play the death out of that one.
There we go. And
Funk, Trick.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. I mean,
not forget Peter Frampton. Frampton Comes Alive.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest live album of all time, I think, selling wise, right?
Yeah. And yet the discussion, everybody knows all those big albums. And for us, Strangers in the Night is a big record, but for the masses, kind of maybe missed the curve on this release, which, I mean, so many people talk about it, yet it just didn't attain the sales level of all those other live albums. I mean, case in point, it charted at number 48 in the US and 42 in Canada, or maybe I got that reversed, but anyways, should have been a lot higher. They ended up recording Strangers in the Night in Chicago and Louisville in October 1978, and they released it very quickly, January 2nd, 1979. So they weren't fooling about. So I was kind of curious with you guys about the songs having keyboards in it in regards to, you know, there's almost this metal tag of, you know, keyboards and metal shouldn't be a thing. Now, if you guys can just bear with me, I have a quote from a fella, and he says,
Who's the fella?
you guys will somebody here might figure it out.
I know who it is already.
Uh-oh.
It says keyboards was the defining factor between what metal and what was not. That was faux pas to have keyboards on stage, even though everybody had them on the records. I loved keyboards, but I couldn't openly admit that. I couldn't tell my friends I was going to see Platinum Blonde. Of course, if you were lucky enough to have a girlfriend, you were listening to bands with keyboards. John?
I think that was in Chris. Yeah, I had an interview with my buddy Christopher Ward, and I did talk about that because I love the sound of keyboards, but I remember people saying that wasn't cool. Although after talking with my buddy John Webster for my book, I found out that keyboards are actually tucked in under a lot of the things I thought were just heavy electric guitars, right?
Wow.
Obviously, it's a wonderful textural tool, but I remember there being a bit of a stigma, like, you know, the keyboard thing, no synthesizers on this record, no keyboards. But meanwhile, there's probably tons of synthesizers on that record.
The one thing I liked about UFO when it came to keyboards is they didn't really use synthesizers. It was usually just piano, maybe organ, and orchestral strings. They never really got into the synths and stuff like that, and I kind of like that. I mean, there's not too many bands that have heavy music where a piano fits in, but if you listen to Love to Love, that's a very haunting song. And it's all based around piano. And then the guitars kick in. It's huge sounding. So, you know, I think that's one of the attractions for me, you know, being a big Paul Raymond fan, that he knew how to place it nice and not like intrude on the song. Like, because sometimes you get keyboard, they feel like, okay, where can I put my stuff? And they just want to like put everything on top of it and everything. And then it kind of just washes everything out. I think Ron Nevison was a big part of that too. He really knew how to tuck it in there. Like as Sean was saying, you know, really nice and stuff like that. Paul Raymond you must have been a big fan, Andy, Paul Raymond?
Yeah, like I love the fact he was a bit of a utility guy, that he played guitar and keyboards, right? And you know, I think Mike Fraser's comments on this will be interesting, because I wasn't a big keyboard guy either, and you know, I thought like certainly keyboards. I always fought about it in Coney Hatch, and somebody would say, even Kim Mitchell or Carl would say, let's put piano on. And I was the first guy to go, fuck no, I don't want any keyboards on the record, right? But when you mature and you realize that it's a different tone, it takes up a different frequency and a space and a mix, which Mike Fraser can talk to. But, you know, I was like, it took me a long time to realize that John Lord was a big part of that heavy sound, because he was distorting B3, and
Absolutely.
What I thought was guitar was actually keyboards. So, you know, I loved UFO, Greg, just because of what you said. They didn't really feature keyboards. It was more textural and was in there. And before Mike Fraser jumps in, I do want to say the interesting thing about Strangers in the Night was by the time they released that record, Schenker had quit the band. So they released it, and he wasn't even in the band at that point, which was odd. And I know Sean and Fraser, you guys listened to all their records, but the minute Michael Schenker was out of the band, that was it. I dialed out. I bought about one more record, this one, which I thought was pretty good, and then I was out after that.
That was produced by George. I'm pretty sure that was produced by George Martin. That record.
It was. And there's quite a few strings on that, but it might be interesting. Mike Fraser, we'd love to hear your whole thing about, you know, do keyboards belong in rock and roll, and how do you make them?
You know, it's funny because I grew up kind of like a huge Styx fan. Like I thought that was the area of, you know, keyboards, you know, great harmonies, and you know what you think is rock guitars. You listen to it now, and they weren't like that big heavy thing, but at the time they felt like they're big heavy rock guitars. Same as with Rush and Geddy and all those pedals and stuff. It was all keyboard and synthesizers, but it melded in with the band. You know, you go to older bands like Deep Purple, and you know, then it's going to be more traditional, like, you know, the organs and the pianos and all that stuff. But how do we, you know, Deep Purple, like, you know, they invented another instrument running that organ through a Marshall amp. Like, you know, it's just it did its purpose, right? So I was always a big fan of that, and and then the '80s hit, and then it just got kind of overused with all the sort of the presets and I mean, Bon Jovi made a career off it, but it's just like, whatever. But I always loved keyboards in a band. It added that sort of depth. It was a little harder when bands only had guitar players, and they said, well, let's throw keys on the record. Well, now what do you do live? So for me, that's sort of what killed that idea, just because, okay, we're going to do this for the record. Okay, great. Now, how do we reproduce that live? You look like a bunch of idiots, or you're spinning, running backing tracks and stuff. So, AC/DC never needed it. Zeppelin never really needed it. So there's an ebb and flow to it, but there's some great rock bands that had it, so I'm kind of for as long as it's tasty.
Absolutely.
I think there are a lot of bands that had it that we didn't know had it. Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil, apparently, Sean Kelly would know this, had keyboards throughout, but they were textured in a way that they were kind of supportive as opposed to kind of, out front.
Yeah.
And it's funny, to your point, Sean,
no quarter, there's a perfect example of keyboards working amazing in a rock band.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
Talk about a haunting song, man. That song used to scare me when I was little.
Yeah.
And it's true. Like Andy said, Paul Raymond was the utility player in UFO. I mean, I discovered Strangers in the Night in grade 9 when a guy in high school had it, his older brother's copy, and asked me if I heard this band called UFO, and I was like, no, because I was still in my Kiss, Cheap Trick, AC/DC phase. So I went over and I heard it, and I was just blown away because, I mean, you just listen to Strangers in the Night after Natural Thing, and they go into Out in the Streets. His keyboards just lift that tune. Like, he's just playing, like, I'm not a musician, but to me, he's just playing a whole different pattern, yet it's in sync with the song. He's just not jiving with the guitar. He's doing his own thing, and Shanker's doing his own thing. And I thought, you know what, this is actually a real cool thing. Like, they're really on to something, and how they could build up their songs, like Phrase said, like Love to Love. They start all chill, and then it goes and goes, and then at the end it just, Shanker just goes off on another planet on the guitaring, and Only You Can Rock Me, that the song, chills out in the midsection and then builds back up. And I just loved how they could do that. Like, to me, that was their niche.
Well, one thing I noticed too, listening back to the record, is how in the mix Paul Raymond's rhythm guitar is too. Like, it's equally there. And just the counterpoint between Paul playing kind of the more straight ahead, simpler rhythms, Michael kind of having some of the more intricate things going on, just to have that kind of sense of taste, right? Where you go, okay, I know this guy's going to move. I'm just going to lock it down here. But big fat tone, great playing, and then to be able to take that perspective and shift it onto keyboards too speaks volumes about his musicianship,
And the one thing that's astonishing about that record, like, is how well they play, considering they're all blasted.
Right? So, yeah, they're starting to drink at noon and just went on. The guys in Rush were marveling at that they could pound alcohol and go on and slay, right?
I know, it's Aerosmith, right? I toured with old Aerosmith records. Those guys were so out of it, and the music is so good. I don't know how they did it.
I think there is a point though where it's diminishing returns with that. When you're a young guy, you can kind of get away with it for a bit, but I think you hit this isn't working for me anymore.
There's definitely a line. You're right, Sean.
Yeah. What did they say? They were drug users dabbling in rock and roll by the end of it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. That's funny. Awesome. So the thing with, Phrase will know this by having the deluxe edition, which was kind of interesting, was that the running order of the album, Strangers in the Night, the actual release opens with Natural Thing, Out in the Streets, but you go through those deluxe edition shows, like the shows that they have from Wisconsin, Chicago, also Louisville, and a few other places. They open with Hot and Ready, Pack It Up and Go, and Cherry. And they weren't even on the original album yet. On Strangers in the Night, they included Mother Mary and This Kids, which were never played live, but they recorded them live in the studio and slapped the audience on it. So
yeah, because I know on
Did not know that. Nice.
on Strangers in the Night, like I was listening to Eddie Trunk. He was interviewing Ron Nevison, and because Eddie heard that one of the songs on that record is not live. They did it in the studio, and he wouldn't divulge which one it is. To this day, I'm dying to know which one's not the live one, because it all sounds the same. Somehow they made it sound like it was live, like. Because usually, if you're doing the studio, you should be able to hear, like, well, okay, that's got to be the one, right? But I can't tell. Can you tell, Andy?
No, like I'm shocked. I'd never heard that story, and Mike Fraser would be a great guy to talk to about this. To make a studio recording sound like it's live, that's quite a challenge. I know you can throw in some ambient mics and some audience and stuff, but as Greg just mentioned, you know, I've seen bands go backwards where they've taken out all of the audience mics and all of the ambient stuff and made it sound like a studio, but I've never seen it go the other way. I don't know if you've ever done that, Mike.
Well, you know, there's been a few instances where somebody wants to do a live album. You go record the whole thing. It's always, you know, the show is better in your minds on stage than it was actually out there. So when you go and say, oh, let's mix this thing, and they start hearing what's going on, I'm like, oh, okay, I got to fix my guitar. So I've been involved in a couple of records that end up being studio records with the live ambient crowd. But I don't think you could go in and actually record a live studio record and then, like a studio record and then make it sound live. I mean, other than just throw the canned audience in. But then that all sounds so fake, because there's got to be an element of, you know, some mistakes, some ebb and flow. It's got to be kind of a live thing. And I've never been a fan of all that. You know, I remember once me and Joe Satriani, we did a live recording or whatever, and he's like Mr. Technical. He's like, everything's got to be right. And you go, oh, I screwed that note up. Well, which one? You know, what tenth of a note, and he knows exactly which one. So we did a live record. He's listening back. He goes, well, you know, I don't know if I can put this out. You know, there's a bunch of mistakes. I'm like, Joe, it was freaking, it was awesome. Like, oh, I don't know. So me and Mick, his manager Mick, said, look, Joe, like, it's great. Just put it out there. So we convinced them to just put out this live record, and he did it, and it was a really freeing moment for him, because he still hears all the little, you know, mistakes and one note fluffs and all that, but he was like, wow, he says, yeah, he says, that's one of my favorite things I've done, because he's not so, you know, so.
Yeah. And Mike, you brought up something interesting too. You know, there's that human component of capturing the moment, not necessarily a perfect performance, and the live vibe, and you know, all of the mics picking up ambience, and it's hard to fix something if the guitar player makes a mistake, because it's going to be bleeding in on the vocal mic anyway. So why even try? Just let it. We went through this with live in Germany with Coney. It's just like there was some mistakes, and we we're just like, whatever. That was the moment. Let's just go with it. But you do have to park your pride off to the side and go, okay, I know I messed up, and it's gonna be out there for the world. But I don't know. I'm a big fan of capturing the vibe in the moment. So if there's some mistakes, no problem. Go with it.
You know what's interesting? What I find it's the mentality of it. Like, and even with the fans, like, you know, they're all at the show, they're high, they're having a good time, they're seeing their idols up there, and it's great. So we make this recording of it, you know, we mix it sounds great, you know, put it out there, and then, you know, some people go, oh, well, I didn't know that was so shitty. Oh, I didn't know. Oh, they played that shit that night. But their memory of it was great.
That's right.
So, so that's what we try and soften, you know, fix some of the glaring, you know, the guitar disappeared for 10 minutes or whatever, but keep some of it. So it's that kind of ebb and flow. Like, you can't, you can't reinvent it. Like, you kind of go with what that energy was. And then, you know, part of my job and, you know, with the band and whoever's producing it is like, what was that energy of that night, and then you capture that and say, okay, that doesn't matter. Oh, that one we should fix. That
Right.
doesn't, and not just make it clinical, but
I think, Mike, to that point, it's if it takes you out of the moment, if a mistake takes you out of the moment of the transactional energy that was happening, then yeah, you can soften or fix it. But sometimes it adds to it. I remember watching Guns N' Roses live at the Ritz, and there's a moment where Slash is leaning over and playing, and a fan reaches up and grabs the neck of his guitar and goes, boom.
Oh,
I rewound the VHS and watched that over and over. That was a mistake technically, but to me, it was the coolest thing. Like that was a moment. I wanted that.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Just so you guys are wondering, I got a lot of info tonight out of this UFO book by Martin Popoff. So, and he talked to Paul Chapman during about Strangers in the Night. Yeah. So, and it's talked about in here about a couple that they did in the studio where they added the audience. So it wasn't, I'm not making this stuff up, folks.
Well, the cool thing about this record, and I think everybody on would agree, that this might have been the top of the mountain for this band, where they had really hit their stride. They were starting to get a boatload of airplay. Everybody knew about them. And this one just was like, kind of put them, even though it didn't sell a lot, as you said, Deke, in comparison to other live records, I think arguably that record put them on the map. Like really solidified. They'd been going up, and they recorded that. And it's, you see that arc with bands that you mentioned, whether it was Double Live Gonzo or Peter Frampton. You know, they're toiling and touring for years in the studio, and these records are doing okay, but all of a sudden the live album just puts them over the edge. I've kind of felt that for Strangers. I don't know whether you guys did too.
Yeah, definitely.
It's the same as Kiss too. When Kiss put that live record out, that was pretty much their last shot.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, if that failed, they were done. I mean, they were so in debt from what I read back then. You know, this is it, man.
Bill Aucoin was in debt. I think he was using his American Express card to pay for their hotels and everything, and they'd been on the road for years. And he was like, "Guys, this is the end." So, and Rock and Roll All Night came out, I think, and they said, okay, we got a hit. And it did okay, but not enough to kind of put them over because they had a huge amount of debt. And they put Alive out and just kind of crossed their fingers, and bang, it just went crazy because it was, people argue that it was mostly a studio record, but it captured that kind of ethos of Kiss and it really kind of pushed them over into fame. So
it probably made you want to go see the band, Brent. You heard it and you went, what is this? This is like lightning in a bottle. I got to go check this out, right?
Right, exactly.
Absolutely.
Like Kiss Alive was the perfect storm of desperation because you had Casablanca Records was going under too. Like, I mean, Neil Bogart was just existing off. They were putting out records so they could get the advanced sale money and then they'd get hit with a bunch of returns and have to, send it back. But they were just kind of stealing from Peter to pay Paul. But also, they knew they had something special. The live thing was working. This was blowing people away. And what I kind of wrote about this in my book too. I was talking about the importance of live albums because for a kid, you get incredible value for the money. You get the best work of that artist up to that point in time, delivered in the ultimate environment, right? You're kind of recreating the concert bowl experience, but you're also getting the best of everything, right? And I think it's too bad that Schenker bailed after this record came out because this would have been one more studio record with Schenker, and I think UFO would have been up there. Smith and your Kiss.
And it's funny because like with that Kiss live record, everything prior to that, to me, didn't sound that great. Like their studio stuff wasn't great sounding records. And then the live one kind of brought life to a lot of their songs, so, and then once they got Bob Ezrin in there, then they started really, with Destroyer or something that really made them sound good. But if you listen to the really early stuff, it wasn't really well recorded.
No,
to my ears.
Same with Thin Lizzy to my ears too. Thin Lizzy, the sound of Thin Lizzy to me is live and dangerous.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, boys, I got to leave probably in about 5-10 minutes to head to my hockey game. But one thing Deke, I wanted to just ask the two guitar players on the call, because I'm a closet guitarist. I own a few. I wish I was a guitar player, but I ended up being a bass player. So I got a bit of penis envy going on there. But with Schenker, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, the thing that really stuck out to me with his playing was how quick and articulate he was. Lots of guys are fast, and you can hear them playing fast, and the notes kind of meld in. But the fact that you could almost hear every single note that Schenker played always blew me away on how quick and nimble and agile he was. But his tone in conjunction with how he executed it, and I don't know if that's right, guys, but that's what really impressed me about Michael Schenker.
I couldn't agree more, and his vibrato is to this day is just unbelievable. You know, him and John Sykes and stuff like that, you can't touch it. But yeah, he's very articulate. Like his notes are precise, and I find like with Neil Sean, who I'm a big fan of, when he plays those melodic leads, they're beautiful. But then he starts playing really fast, and sometimes it's just a wash. Like I can't, like it's like I couldn't copy what he did because I can't even really understand what he's playing. Where Schenker, like you said, every note's as loud as the one before. It's not just a wash, and that's what separates him from so many people. And he doesn't need lots of effects. He doesn't need echoes and reverbs and toys and massive amounts of distortion and sustain. It's just all in his hands. And yeah, man, that's why he's one of the best.
Well, Andy, still
I'll agree there. You know, a lot of the guitar players that I've worked with that are not that they're anti-effect, but get rid of the pedals, get rid of that. The biggest thing for tone and everything is don't over distort it.
Yeah, man.
Sure, it becomes easier to play, but then all those notes just get slurred.
That's right.
There's no thing, even Sykes was like, he used to walk around with like a 3/4 or half model size acoustic guitar. And he'd, sit there talking, and he'd just always be playing that. And like, oh, why do you do that? He goes, well, it's just for the fingers. But he says, I try and get this guitar to sustain, and to try and get a little acoustic guitar and get to sustain. He says, oh, it just kills your hand. Like, really work. So he says, when I plug into an amp, then I'm already there, and I don't have to overdo it. So he can dig in, like all those high squeals and stuff he does. That's off the low E or the high E or whatever you guys call it, like the bottom E.
Yep.
Grabs that and goes, whoa, and he pulls it off the net like all the time, like
monster player.
Especially with 15s, right? So it's so it's all in the hands, and that's what
absolutely.
I'm not a guitar player, so whatever. But all these guys I've worked with was just like I've got a great Mo Foster story. So I was doing I think it was a Chilliwack record with Mo Foster and Simon Phillips on drums, and which was that was great.
Wow.
But Mo was saying, he says they're on a session once, and he comes in with blank guitar player. They used to play with Mo Foster, Simon Phillips, and who's the guitar
Jeff
player?
Beck. No.
So on a Jeff Beck thing. So Jeff had been late all night setting up a solo sound or whatever. So Mo came in the next morning, and the amp was still on and all that. So he comes in, he's the first one in. He goes over and picks up the guitar. But it's just sounded horrible. It's like, oh, what the fuck? And just then Jeff walked in and goes, what the fuck did you do? He says, we spent all night on that sound. Grabs the guitar off him. He goes, and there it is.
Right.
So, a lot of it is hands and what you're doing with your acts and your equipment and all that. And you can try and write down serial numbers and model numbers and guitars and all that and try and copy it. It's that.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more, Mike.
Awesome. The other thing I'll say to Andy's point with Schenker does not necessarily play for the song. And hear me out. His intention as a musician and an artist is a guitar soloist. He said that a number of times. I write songs as a vehicle so I can express myself as a lead guitar player. And you can actually hear that in the songs. 9 times out of 10, a UFO song goes to a very different place for the guitar solo. And often it kind of gets into this more melodic, major key thing because that is his style, articulate, fluid, and uplifting, and that's because his perspective, it just so happens that his intention to play guitar for the guitar solo works great with the songs. Don't get me wrong. I think it does. But I know that his intention isn't, hey, I'm going to find the hook for this. It's like, no, I'm going to express myself with this lead guitar solo as a separate piece of music. And the song is an incidental thing that will help me do that.
That's right. Ron Nevison said that when they were mixing Strangers of the Night. Ron Nevison said, I sat with Michael and he's not listening for UFO. He's listening for more Michael. So, it was the funny thing, right? Because he would listen and he would hear his mistakes and say, well, you got to change that. And to your point, Fraser, earlier, sometimes that messes with the feel of the song. And he would say, well, it's not technically right, so I want to do it over. And that ultimately led to him leaving the band, was because he was listening, to your point, John, as well, about this is about me. This is about my playing, not necessarily the band. It's about how this sounds. And he wasn't happy with it. The point that I wanted to make earlier about Schenker, though, apparently he was very difficult to deal with, Mad Michael. But the thing I always really liked about him is that he had a very interesting kind of note choice in his solos, I found. And what I mean by that is when, you hear a solo, you can imagine what it's going to sound like almost, right? But I found that with Schenker, you never really knew what you were going to hear. There was always a couple of notes. They fit, they weren't wrong, but it was like, oh, that's kind of cool that he did that. But he didn't tap, he didn't, pinch harmonic, he didn't do any of that stuff. He just kind of was very innovative, I found, in his note choice.
I found that too, that he came from more of a classical approach to his leads. Like he didn't really sound bluesy. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that kind of separated, for back then, later in the 80s, a lot of people started, especially when Yngwie came out, everybody started doing that neoclassical stuff. But up till then, like if you listen to the 70s, other than maybe Ritchie Blackmore, there wasn't too many guys that approached their guitar leads like classical like that,
Yeah.
So that kind of
the Teutonic thing.
Uli Roth, what you heard, Brent. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Sean.
No, sorry, I was just gonna say like Uli John Roth was the same way, right?
Uli,
absolutely, yeah.
German thing. I think it comes from that European classical music sensibility. They're growing up with that since they're kids.
Yeah. I was gonna say that, Brent. Like I think what you're hearing is the influence that is not rock or blues based. That was what caught you off guard. He would start off with a bend or something, and then take it over, and you're like, wait a sec, that's not what the American or the British guys were playing.
Exactly.
So
that's right.
That kind of put him out there. And when I told you guys I kind of dialed out after Michael left, but I followed him with the Scorpions. Then I got into Michael Schenker's solo records and stuff like that. And so maybe this is a good time for me to bow out, because you guys are going to talk about a bunch of records that I've never even listened to, because I was like, Michael's gone from the band, so I'm out. You guys can talk about mechanics all you want. I never even heard it once.
So Andy, before you go,
but
what would my introduction into your level of UFO be? Like, what would I listen to? Because I admittedly, I know of the band, but I'm not so
3 records.
All of you guys, so
3 records. Go ahead, Andy. I'll tell mine after you.
I bet you're going to say the same one. Like phrase, if I said go do your homework on UFO, well, obviously that one, the debut has Doctor and Rock Bottom on it, and this sounds very much like a old classic 70s record. And as Phrase said, the production is not amazing on it. It's the bassist from 10 Years After, I believe, was the producer on it, right? But some incredible playing on that. This one for me, just that kind of went up an extra level, which is the Force It record. And then I'm torn between these two and which one's my favorite, like Obsession or Lights Out. So I gave you 4, maybe Phrase has given you 2, but I know you, Mike, and I know the type of music you like, and you would love those records. They're meat and potatoes rock, man. They're freaking awesome.
So I mean, that sort of their progression to, like, say, early Aerosmith, and then Fairbairn got a hold of them and then added the keyboards, and then all of a sudden they became this big commercial band, but then
produced a little bit more produced.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, Mike, that when Ron Nevison got a hold of him, like Lights Out, that's the first one he did, 1977.
Yeah.
And then Obsession, that was 1978, and then the live record, which is 78, which was released 79. So those 3, those are the ones I suggest first, and then if you like those, then go right back to the Force It and No Heavy Petting and stuff like that. Yeah.
Cool. Right on.
And you know what, guys? Maybe we should just leave it on that note, because as Phil Moog said at the end of Lights Out, under your feet, the grass is growing. It's time we said goodbye.
Right on.
Wow. You guys are going to cap it off? Well, perfect. My hockey gear's in my car. I can head out.
I would love to have all you guys back some point next year, and we can do perhaps another album of something, because this is a pretty killer panel I assembled. I'm actually going to pat myself on the back and say,
yes,
good job, dude.
Great job, dude.
But, I just want to thank all you guys for taking your time. Andy, one quick question before you bolt. You're saying you're playing the El Macambo at the end of December.
I'm going to be there.
Right.
29th.
Me too.
I will be there. Lee actually
December
will also be there
29th?
with me, by the way. Yeah.
Now, are you going to record? 29th? Are you going to record that show, since you're playing the debut album front to back, and include it in a 40th anniversary deluxe of the self-titled Coney?
Well, we haven't discussed it, but I think it would be a missed opportunity to not at least record it. And as Mike Fraser just said, we'll listen to it. And if we think we're amazing that night, we'll listen to it a couple days later and go, "Oh, we actually shit the bed. That's not that good." But no, I think we're gonna record it for sure. And nice. I think it's kind of exciting, boys. We've never actually played the record from its entirety, even going back to the '80s from top to tail. So it'll be fun.
Andy, you know what's cool too is the video facility there too. So you can just do like a little live thing, and maybe put out a little live at the Elmo again.
Maybe we send it off to that slacker Mike Fraser out west and go, "Here, dude, tell us if you can fix this. There's a lot of bum notes out here."
Let him ruin
it.
All right. Well, guys, thanks again so much. Whoever can stay on with me for the next couple of minutes, if you wouldn't mind. I know Andy has to bolt. So I'd like to thank everybody out there who's watching this debut episode of season 2 of Scotch on the Rocks. I don't know how I'm going to top it next week, but I'll give it a shot. Maybe I'll bring these 5 guys back. I don't know. Just joking.
Well, I'm going to sign off and thank you guys. Amazing seeing all of you. I love all you boys. And Brent, you got to talk to Mike Fraser, because he was sipping something brown there. I don't think it was a bourbon, but you better talk to him about what he was drinking.
I saw that it was Crown Royal, but we
I don't know.
Chat. Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, boys.
Andy,
great. Take it easy, brother.
Christmas.
Take care, man. We'll see you on the 29th.
See you, boys.
Greg, Sean, Brent.
Take it easy, Phrase.